Just wanted to make a quick video remaking the patch of the dub sort of tune I've made direct to YouTube. I had to remake the patch entirely because I already moved on to something else, but it's no big deal. So it's not exactly going to be the same thing, but it's more about the idea than the realization of that idea. It's going to be pretty similar in the ballpark. I think the sequence is a bit different. That's fine. The sequence is coming from the Oxy one at 120 BPM, and I divided the clock by 4. It's going way slower than that. So I have 3 notes, and the sequence I sent to the SM1 is this. And that's the SM1 going straight into Ghost, which doesn't really apply anything. As you can hear, there's a bit of modulation. So I'm using, if I remove the LFO, I'm using the 2 oscillators, which I've tuned to sort of chord, I guess. I'm using the dual peak filter, which I really like because it goes from sort of a low pass to a high pass, which is useful when you have modulation going around, and especially when you have a bunch of effects after. So I'm using the onboard LFO, the first one, so to the left, that's the first one. It's a simple triangle LFO. It's not tempo sync or anything. That's, I think, very key to have nothing synced so that everything can interact in a way that are interesting. This is going straight here. As you can see, it's not crazily interesting for now. So what I did first, what I usually do, is to have this going into the delay and the delay going into Ghost. That's usually how the studio is set up, like most of the time. So you can hear there's just a tiny bit of delay here. And then I thought, why not add maybe a phaser to that sound? So I put the phaser in the path, not in the feedback path, just before. So it's going SM1, Kameniak, Sarajevo, but then I wanted to use the Bark filter, which was just sitting there, so I had to use it. And so I'm using my final output from the delay into the Bark filter, and then the Bark filter is going into Ghost. So you can instantly hear the character of the Bark filter. And I'm using the LFO2 from Swayman, the output. It's nice that they have the output so you can use it with external module and not just internally. This one is a saw wave. I can always change the wave. Here you can see it's more of a pendulum wave. Sine wave, same thing. It could be random also. This is a slewed random. This is the random classic with sharp edges. But I like the inverted saw or saw. I think it's saw or whatever. I like the movement. It's unsynced as well. It's going a bit faster than the internal one I am applying to the filter. But as you can hear, our stabs get different every time because none of these individual modulation are very complicated, but we have one LFO going at a certain speed on the filter, the internal LFO of Kameniak going at another certain speed and applied to the phaser frequency, and we have another LFO going at a different certain speed applied to the Bark filter processor bands. So that's already 3 very simple modulation that don't really interact together, but independently they shape the sound in a way that there's very, very few chances that our chord is going to be the same every time. I mean, it's going to take a while before 2 chords just strike the same way. Since we're going through Ghost, we can always add a bit of reverb if we need, and that's it. That's the chord. So it's still very dry. I'm going to now show you the screen so you can see what's happening. And on Ableton, I have a bunch of sends. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I usually just have 3, the Eclipse DP4 first channel and DP4 second channel. So the first one is Eventide Eclipse for some reverb. The preset is called Eclipse Space. So pretty over the top, lots of echoes, reflections, very deep reverb, classic Eventide. which I think works well in that context. But there's still a lot of space in between those stabs. So the idea was to fill the space, but still keep a bit of emptiness and silence, because silence is music too. Second send is the DP4 with, I think that was the kick non-linear reverb. Again, I changed everything yesterday, so not certain, but it's a different reverb. And it's also noisy, which in that very specific case is a huge bonus. If you have ever listened to tracks like Trace or Carrier by Rhythm and Sound, first of all, if you haven't, just stop that and immediately go and listen to those tracks. But if you have, like, the hum of the mixer is basically the most important sound in the track, it's the loudest sound, and it's pure bliss. So any sound, any noise we can get from this machine by pushing the gain, the input gain, the output gain, and just amplifying the noise that's present in the signal we are taking it. C is the second effect from the DP4, but there's no send here. D is going to be the most important sound here. It's the Valhalla delay. So that's a plugin. Everybody knows that one. It's in PBD mode, once again, trying to get as much dirtiness as I can. Full wet because it's a send. So that's the pure sound of the delay, but I wanted to add even more modulation to get, because it's a very, very sparse sound. So I wanted to get as much random modulation as I could. So I used Sling Filter, which is a very amazing max patch or plugin you can get from Hypnos, the deep techno label that also does plugins. This one I think is the most well-known. Think of it as a bark filter if you want. It's a multi-band filter, but with this movement inspired from water, I guess, with ripple multiplied rate. It's in stereo. You have a lot of controls. You have some more controls, so you can choose the band where the zone where it has an impact. Different kind of stereo modes. Try wet. It's an amazing little plugin, well worth the money. You could see me in the video just also wiggling the feedback knob if you want to go crazy. So that's one send, and the last one is the classic dub techno go mid filter delays. It's just like instant basic channel more or less, and I think I added an LFO to automate the send here. So basically quite a few sends adding on top of each other. And what I really like also is sending. I activated the sends for the sends, and so you can send my reverb into my DB4 of some chorus, flanger. That's kind of a dub technique which you would do that on a mixer, of course. Here I kind of set up my Ableton to be a mixer. And then we have a bunch of effects on the channel of the SM1, because as you can hear, it's extremely dynamic and a bit annoying. So first of all, we're going to tame that with the compressor, the Elysium compressor. Any plugin will do. This one I like a lot, so I'm using it. So high threshold, auto fast, so really catches the peaks of that stab, which is very, very sharp. Then I'm using echo to add some more echo. This one is synced. It's a bit like doom and metal guitarist having like 5 different distortion pedal at 10%. It's going to sound better than just one at 110%. So I'm taking the same approach here with delays. Just add quite a few delays with different settings, and so none of them is extremely overbearing. Maybe the Valhalla delay is the most powerful one, but it's the main one, we'll say. But it's just they add their touches, so the sound feels like it's bouncing in a cave a bit randomly, because each and every of these delays is going to react depending how much harmonic you're sending to the delays with the different LFOs shaping the initial sound, the initial hit. So that's our LFO modulating the send here. I have a Pro Q3 just to remove some harsh frequencies. Another compressor I think I set up to again tame some craziness, and a soothe as well, just so it's a bit less aggressive. Of course we can bring a kick drum, which I'm using the classic bass mints. I'm not boosting the low end, I'm just using clarity, which does a dip at 400 Hertz, which you can do with any EQ. And I'm low passing it because I like the kicks in dub techno to be like far away and sort of just giving a tempo. I don't want this. And our bassline is Atlantis. Again, I don't think that's the exact same sequence, but that's more or less the same sound. So Atlantis is simply set up as a triangle wave, no modulation, no envelope, nothing, basically just pure sound of the saw wave with the filter barely opened. And then the cool thing with our chain of effects, if you're just tweaking one of those, the fact that there's so many different effects, the one after the other, they just all are going to have an impact to the final sound. You just have to set up yourself to be surprised by whatever comes out and ride it. This is an extremely short, almost resonant delay, which I've added in track towards the end. Super surprised at the metallic tones it brought, and I liked it. recall correctly, we also had a small hi-hat. Doesn't bring anything crazy to the table, just a bunch of sends, ultra tab to have it sort of bounce everywhere. So our sequence here for the bassline, pretty simple, and that's the sequence for the swim. One send, the other, and of course everything is coming together here with the processing. Like I was saying, we're happy to have noise everywhere we can. I'm boosting sort of the low end with the high pass. A lot of makeup gain in the compressor. Low pass it for effect. I was gonna say the overstay modular channel is a godsend for that kind of music. But it's a godsend, full stop. It's actually worth creating a religion. It is the god. We can even go saturation to tame the peaks even further and just have everything crunch. The X filter is doing a phenomenal job as usual. Just listen to the on-off. It's just too bassy, empty, muddy. The low cut is removing just a nice amount of low. I'm using the low cut here and boosting here, so maybe it doesn't make any sense, but lately I found that these two together just make something that I like. I need to run more tests that maybe this doesn't need to be, and then I can just not cut here, but anyway, I think it sounds pretty nice. I'm usually having a little dip at 200, 400, depending on the track. That's where a lot of the mud resides. I like to boost with this one and cut with this one. I'm also boosting the high a bit. But the mids and low I usually cut a bit. Although I like to boost here around 6-7k. Usually that's where my synths are. And then we have the expressor compressing quite a lot, but with a 50% dry wet. Again, it's quite dramatic effect when you cut it. It brings a lot of volume, just keeping everything together. You can engage warm mode, which is always nice, but I don't use it that much because the overstayer just brings a lot of warmth already. I'm using a high pass filter to 200, 300 to not react too much to low frequencies. gain reduction limiter so that it doesn't compress below 9 or 7. You can see here, let's say stop at 6. The idea is you want your compressor to react evenly. Maybe catch some peaks here and there. You can have auto fast, but on a 2-bus it's a bit too strong. I like to have it in logarithmic on the 2-bus. I think it works better. And if I remove all the processing, apart from a dramatic change of volume, it's just so much nicer. I'm not applying any sidechain. Any sidechaining here is coming from those. That's it for this little dub demo. Hopefully it was helpful. Don't hesitate to try to set up similar things at home and slow tempo down and just juice as much as you can from just a simple stab. It's extremely fun.